6 months later, Elena stood on the observation deck of the research station New Harmony, watching the most beautiful sight she had ever seen. Through the transparent walls, she could see the nebula terminus in all its transformed glory. Zephyrian crystal forests grew across 3 planets, their blue and silver branches reaching toward the stars. The crystals sang with harmonics that could be heard even through the station's hull, melodies of growth and peace. Corvin patrol ships moved between the crystal trees like protective guardians, their dark hulls gleaming with honor marks earned through months of successful joint operations. Hegemony research platforms orbited the planets, their white surfaces covered with sensors that monitored the crystal growth and analyzed the nebula's gas composition. Scientists from all 3 species worked together on projects that none of them could have accomplished alone. "It is more beautiful than I imagined," said Captain Sarah Chen, Elena's replacement as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council. Elena had been promoted to Director of Interspecies Communication, the first human to hold such a position. "The crystal forests are just the beginning," Elena replied. "Come, let me show you what we have built here." They walked through the station's corridors, passing laboratories where Zephyrian crystal singers worked with hegemony data analysts to create new forms of living architecture. They saw training rooms where Corvin warriors taught other species their protective techniques, while learning Zephyrian harmony singing and hegemony strategic analysis. In the communication center, Elena's team of human translators worked around the clock to facilitate conversations between species across the galaxy. The harmony protocols had been adopted by over 50 civilizations, and reports of interspecies conflicts had dropped by 80% in 6 months. "How many humans are working as mediators now?" Captain Chen asked. "We have 237 humans serving as interspecies mediators across the galaxy," Elena replied, "and we are training more every month." It turns out that quite a few humans have the cognitive flexibility needed for multi-species communication, though none have attempted the level of simultaneous translation I did that day. Elena still remembered the moment she had collapsed in the council chamber. The doctors had told her she was lucky to survive without brain damage. But she had discovered something important about human potential that day. They were capable of mental feats that other species considered impossible. They entered Elena's office, where the walls were covered with communication charts showing the interaction patterns of dozens of species. Each chart showed how different civilizations could misunderstand each other, and how human mediators could prevent those misunderstandings. "The Council wants to expand the program," Captain Chen said. "They are requesting 500 more human mediators within the next year." Elena nodded. "We can do that, but I want to make sure we train them properly." What happened in the council chamber was dangerous. I pushed my mind beyond safe limits because I had no choice. I do not want other humans to take those kinds of risks unless absolutely necessary. She activated a holographic display showing the current state of galactic relations. Where the map had once been colored with zones of conflict and tension, it now showed interconnected networks of cooperation and trade. The Zephyrian-Corvin Hegemony Alliance has become a model for other species, Elena explained. The Aquatic Union and the Silicon Confederacy have started joint operations in the Spiral Arm. The hive minds and the individual collective are working together on terraforming projects. Species that have been enemies for centuries are learning to cooperate. Captain Chen studied the display with amazement. All because you realized that their translation systems were causing misunderstandings? All because humans never lost the ability to understand different ways of thinking, Elena corrected. Every species in the galaxy evolved specialized solutions to survive in their environments. But humans remain generalists. We can adapt to almost any communication style, any social structure, any way of thinking. A chime sounded, indicating an incoming priority message. Elena activated the communication array, and the familiar forms of her 3 closest alien friends appeared in the air above her desk. The war speaker looked older, but more peaceful than he had 6 months ago. His scars had been joined by new honor marks that represented successful defense of civilian populations, rather than conquest. Elena, my friend, I bring news from the Outer Rim. The Predator clans and the Peaceful Assembly have requested human mediation for their border disputes. The Zephyrian speaker's crystal form glowed with excitement. Our crystal forests in the nebula have produced seeds for 12 new worlds. The Harmony Council wants to know if humans can help coordinate the planting ceremonies with local species. The collective voice had been upgraded with new processing power, but Elena noticed that its communications had become more emotionally aware. Statistical update. Galactic conflicts have decreased 78% since implementation of Harmony protocols. Request. Can human mediator cores expand to cover remaining dispute zones? Elena smiled at her friends. Even their communication styles had evolved over the past 6 months. The war speaker now included harmony sense that showed care for others. The Zephyrian speaker had learned to include logical structures in her songs. The collective voice had begun incorporating emotional context into its data streams. We can handle all of those requests, Elena assured them. The human mediator program is working better than we hoped. But I have even better news. She activated a new display showing recent developments. 3 more species have joined the Nebula Terminus Cooperative. The Crystal Weavers want to work with the Zephyrians on artistic projects. The Metal Shapers are eager to help the Corvins build better ships. The Data Shepherds have proposed joint research with the Hegemony. A 6-species alliance? The war speaker asked with amazement. Such a thing has never existed in galactic history. And it is just the beginning, Elena said. The Council is discussing the formation of a true galactic cooperative. Not just a council where species meet to argue, but an actual alliance where they work together for common goals. Captain Chen looked fascinated. What would humans' role be in such a cooperative? Elena had been thinking about this question for months. We would be what we have always been, the bridge builders. The species that helps others understand each other and work together. Not rulers or conquerors, but facilitators of peace and cooperation. The Zephyrian speaker's harmonics became complex with joy. Humans would be the harmony weavers for the galaxy itself. The pack leaders who bring honor to all packs. The war speaker added approvingly, the logical facilitators of optimal cooperative efficiency, the collective voice concluded. Elena felt a deep satisfaction as she realized what humanity had become in just 6 months. They had found their place in the galaxy not through superior technology or military might, but by being uniquely suited to help other species overcome the barriers between them. There is something else, Elena said. The Council has voted to rename Harmony's Edge. It will now be called the Elena Vasquez Station for Interspecies Understanding. Captain Chen gasped. They are naming a space station after you? Not just after me, Elena corrected. After what humanity represents. The ability to understand others, to see past differences, to find common ground where none seemed to exist. She looked out the window again at the crystal forests growing in space, protected by Corvin warriors and studied by hegemony scientists. 6 months ago, these 3 species had been preparing to destroy each other. Now they were creating something beautiful together. The galaxy was seconds from war, Elena said quietly, but one human did not prevent it alone. One human just helped 3 civilizations remember that they were not enemies. The real heroes are the ones who chose to trust, to cooperate, to build instead of destroy. As if summoned by her words, alerts began chiming throughout the station. Elena checked her console and smiled. It was another request for human mediation, this time from a species she had never heard of before. No rest for the bridge builders, Captain Chen observed. Elena activated her communication array, preparing to reach out to another species that needed help understanding their neighbors. This is what we do now. This is what humans are for. We help the galaxy talk to itself. As she began the familiar process of learning a new species' communication style, Elena reflected on how much had changed. Humanity had gone from being newcomers in galactic politics to being essential facilitators of galactic peace. They had found their purpose among the stars, not as conquerors or rulers, but as the species that helped all others find harmony. The galaxy was vast and full of different ways of thinking and communicating. But now it had humans to serve as translators, mediators, and bridge builders. War had been prevented not by force but by understanding. And Elena Vasquez, the human who had risked her life to prevent a galactic war, had become the symbol of what her species could offer to the universe, the most human trait of all. The ability to understand others and help them understand each other. In a galaxy of specialists, humans had become the generalists who could speak to everyone, and in doing so, they had found their greatest destiny, to be the voice of peace itself. The High Mediator's large eyes focused intently on Elena. Ambassador Vasquez, you understand what you are proposing? Real-time trilingual communication while fleet commanders make decisions that could affect billions of lives. Elena nodded, though her mouth felt dry. I understand the risks, but I also understand that in 90 minutes, 3 fleets will be close enough to destroy each other. We have to try something. The war speaker released a scent that Elena's translator identified as protective concern. Despite his fierce appearance, she realized he was genuinely worried about her safety. Human female, what you suggest has never been done. The mental strain alone could kill you. Why would you take such a risk for species not your own? Elena thought about that question. Why was she volunteering to risk her life for aliens she had known for only a few years? The answer came to her clearly. Because war is not just about who starts it, she said. Everyone suffers when it happens. My species learned that lesson the hard way. We fought so many wars based on misunderstandings and fear. I will not let that happen to the galaxy. If I can prevent it. The Zephyrian speaker's crystal form shifted through several colors before settling on a deep blue that Elena had learned meant respect mixed with sadness. Your courage honors your species, young human. But even if you could somehow manage the translations, our fleet commanders are already suspicious and angry. They may not listen to words from an unknown alien. The collective voice processed information rapidly, mechanical parts whirring. Additional complication. Fleet commanders have emergency authority during crisis situations. Even if convinced of translation errors, they may not have authorization to withdraw forces without appearing weak to their crews. Elena felt the weight of these problems, but she also felt something else, a stubborn human refusal to give up. Then we make it so they don't have to appear weak. We give them a solution that makes all 3 look strong and wise. She activated her datapad and began sketching out an idea. What if we propose joint operations in the nebula? Not conquest by any one group, but cooperation between all 3? The 3 delegations exchanged glances. This was clearly a new idea for them. Explain, the war speaker demanded. Elena brought up a holographic display of the nebula terminus. Look at what each of you actually wants. Zephyrians want to grow crystal forests on the planets. These forests are beautiful and create safe harbors for ships. Corvins want to mine the gas clouds and patrol the space lanes. The hegemony wants to build research stations and coordinate efficient resource distribution. She manipulated the display to show how these activities could work together. Corvin mining operations provide the raw materials for hegemony research stations. Zephyrian crystal forests create protected bases where both other species can rest and resupply. Hegemony logistics networks help Corvin patrols cover more space and deliver Zephyrian crystal seeds to new worlds. The collective voice was first to respond. Proposal shows 34% efficiency improvement over single-species operations. Intriguing. The war speaker's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Joint patrols would bring great honor. Protecting crystal gardens and research stations from pirates and raiders. Yes, this is worthy work. The Zephyrian speaker's harmonics became more complex, what Elena recognized as excitement mixed with hope. To grow new gardens with the protection of brave warriors and the wisdom of clever builders. This could be the greatest harmony our people have ever sung. Elena felt a surge of hope, but the tactical display reminded her that time was running out. We have 1 hour and 20 minutes before the fleets are in weapons range. Can you contact your commanders? Emergency channels are always open, the war speaker confirmed. Our crystal singers will hear our call across any distance. The Zephyrian speaker added. Quantum. Communication with our fleet is instantaneous. The collective voice stated. Elena took a deep breath. This was it. Then let's make the call together. But I need you to trust me completely. When I tell you to say something, say it exactly as I tell you. When I translate what others are saying, believe my translation even if it sounds different from what your own systems tell you. The 3 leaders looked at each other. Elena could see them weighing their options. Trust an unknown human with the fate of their people, or let their fleets destroy each other based on misunderstood words. We agree, the Zephyrian speaker chimed. Acceptable, the collective voice calculated. For honor and peace, the war speaker growled. The high mediator gestured to his assistants, who quickly set up a 3-way communication array. Within minutes, the faces of 3 fleet commanders appeared in the air above the assembly. Admiral Kessitar of the Corvin fleet looked like a larger, more scarred version of the war speaker. His mandibles were set in what Elena recognized as stubborn determination. Fleet Singer Harmonial of the Zephyrian crystal ships appeared as a tall, elegant crystal being whose form pulsed with controlled energy. Commander Collective Prime of the Hegemony fleet was so heavily modified with mechanical parts that Elena could barely see any organic components. Report, Admiral Kessitar clicked immediately. Are the enemy fleets withdrawing? Elena quickly stepped in. Admiral, before anyone reports anything, I need to demonstrate something important to all of you. She looked at each fleet commander in turn. I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez of Earth. For the past hour, we have discovered that your species have been misunderstanding each other due to translation errors. I am going to prove this to you. Elena turned to the war speaker. Please tell Admiral Kessitar that you respect his tactical skills and trust his judgment. The war speaker spoke in the Corvan language, releasing the appropriate pheromones to show respect and pack loyalty. Admiral Kessitar's antenna twitched in surprise. War speaker, your scent carries true respect. This is unexpected. Now Elena faced the Zephyrian speaker. Please sing to Fleet Singer Harmonial about your desire to create beauty in the nebula that will honor both of your peoples. The Zephyrian speaker's harmonics filled the chamber with complex, beautiful music. Elena watched Fleet Singer Harmonial's crystal form pulse brighter and brighter. Those harmonics, Harmonial sang back. They speak of shared joy and mutual respect. But our translator said you demanded our submission. Finally, Elena addressed the collective voice. Please explain to Commander Collective Prime your calculations for efficient resource sharing that benefits all participants. The collective voice transmitted a stream of logical data. Commander Collective Prime processed it rapidly. Analysis complete. Proposal shows significant mutual benefit. Previous translations indicated demands for technological surrender. Error probability in our systems, significant. Elena felt her head beginning to pound from the strain of monitoring 3 communication methods simultaneously, but she pressed on. Fleet commanders, you have just heard your counterparts speak directly in their own languages. What you heard from their own mouths was different from what your translation systems told you, correct? All 3 commanders confirmed this was true. Then you understand that your species are not enemies. You have been preparing to fight over words that were never actually spoken. Admiral Kessitar's scent shifted to what Elena recognized as confusion mixed with anger. But anger directed at the situation, rather than at the other fleets. If this is true, then we have moved our ships into battle formation for nothing. Worse than nothing, Elena said. In 47 minutes, your fleets will be close enough that any accidental weapons discharge could trigger a war none of you want. She brought up the tactical display for all 3 commanders to see. But we have a solution. Instead of fighting each other, we propose joint operations in the nebula terminus. Working frantically, Elena explained the cooperation plan to all 3 fleet commanders simultaneously. She found herself switching between languages and communication styles so rapidly that her vision began to blur. The Corvan admiral would hear an explanation of honorable patrol duties, protecting civilian operations. The Zephyrian fleet singer would hear about growing beautiful crystal gardens with strong guardians to keep them safe. The Hegemony commander would hear about efficient resource extraction with optimal coordination between specialized teams. All 3 were hearing about the same plan, but in ways that made sense to their own species and culture. This could work, Admiral Kessitar admitted. Joint patrols against pirates would bring great honor to all participants. The harmony would be magnificent, Fleet Singer Harmonial sang. Crystal forests growing under the protection of brave warriors and wise builders. Efficiency ratings exceed single-species operations by 34%, Commander Collective Prime calculated. Proposal is logical and beneficial. Elena felt a moment of triumph, but then the room began to spin around her. The strain of simultaneous trilingual communication was taking its toll. She gripped the edge of the communication console to keep from falling. Ambassador? The High Mediator moved toward her with concern. Elena forced herself to focus. They were so close to success. Fleet commanders, do you agree to begin immediate joint operations planning? Can you redirect your ships to demonstrate cooperation instead of preparation for battle? Agreed, said Admiral Kessitar. With joy, sang Fleet Singer Harmonial. Elena stood before the assembled representatives, feeling the weight of their attention. The High Mediator gestured for her to continue, but she could see doubt in every alien face. Humans were barely considered adults in galactic politics. Honored Council, Elena began. I believe there has been a terrible mistake. These three great civilizations are not actually disagreeing with each other. The war speaker's mandibles clicked in what Elena recognized as scorn. Foolish human. We heard their threats clearly. The crystal singers demand we bow to their ancient claims. The machine minds insist we surrender our conquest to their cold logic. No, Elena said firmly. You heard what your translator told you they said. That is not the same thing. She activated her portable display and projected 3 columns of text in the air above the assembly. These are the actual words spoken by each delegation in the last hour, in their original languages. And these are what each translator system produced for the others to hear. The differences were shocking. Where the Zephyrian speaker had sung about growing together in harmony, the Corvan translation showed demanding total dominance. Where the war speaker had spoken of honorable partnership, the Zephyrian translation read threatening violence. Where the collective voice had proposed shared efficiency, both translations turned it into technological slavery. The hall fell silent as beings read the comparison. Elena pressed on. Your communication systems are fundamentally different. Zephyrians use harmonic frequencies that carry emotional context. Every note has meaning beyond words. Corvans combine speech with pheromone releases that establish social status and intent. The hegemony uses quantum-entangled data streams that prioritize logical precision over emotional content. She pointed to each delegation in turn. Your translation matrices were designed by your own species. They assume everyone thinks the way you do, but they don't. The collective voice processed this information faster than the others. Hypothesis. Are quantum logic patterns interpreted as dominance by species using emotional or hierarchical communication? Error probability. Significant. The Zephyrian speaker's crystal form began shifting from red to yellow, which meant confusion replacing anger. You suggest our songs of peace became words of war? Exactly, Elena said. And this happens because each species evolved different ways to communicate. But humans... She paused, knowing this would sound strange to them. Humans kept all the old ways, she gestured to herself. We are mimics. Our ancestors survived by reading the emotions and intentions of many different groups. We learned to speak with our voices, our faces, our bodies, our smells when we are afraid or angry. We never specialized like you did. This was the hardest part to explain. Elena had studied comparative biology in preparation for her diplomatic career. Most species evolved one perfect solution to communication, but humans had evolved in complex social groups where they needed to understand many different types of signals. Watch, Elena said. She turned to the Zephyrian speaker and began to hum softly, matching the harmonic undertones she had heard in their speech. The speaker's crystal body immediately shifted to blue-green, which meant surprise and interest. Then she turned to the war speaker. Without making a sound, she straightened her shoulders and looked directly at him, copying the posture she had seen Corvan warriors use when showing respect to superiors. The war speaker's antenna twitched, and she smelled his pheromones change to what her translator called pack recognition. Finally, she faced the collective voice and spoke in clipped, logical phrases. Data presentation complete. Analysis supports interspecies communication error theory. Request evaluation of hypothesis. The collective voice's mechanical parts word. Communication adaptation demonstrated. Impressive cognitive flexibility for organic species. Elena felt a small surge of hope. She was getting through to them. But she also felt exhausted. Consciously matching 3 different communication styles at the same time was like trying to speak 3 languages while doing math problems. Her head was starting to hurt. The point is, she continued, humans can understand all of your communication methods because we never lost the ability to learn new ones. We can hear the emotions in Zephyrian harmonics, smell the social signals in Corvan pheromones, and process the logical structures in hegemony data streams. She brought up another display. Here is what I believe you are actually trying to say to each other. The new translation showed the Zephyrian desire to create beautiful living spaces among the stars, where their crystal forest could grow on the planets while respecting the natural gas flows. The Corvan position revealed their wish to serve as protectors and resource gatherers, earning honor through useful work rather than conquest. The hegemony's real goal was revealed as efficient coordination that would benefit everyone through careful planning and shared technology. You all want the same thing, Elena said. You want to work together in the nebula terminus. The Zephyrians want to create beautiful places to live. The Corvins want meaningful work that brings honor. The hegemony wants everything to run smoothly and efficiently. These goals support each other. The three delegations looked at each other with something other than anger for the first time in months. Elena could see understanding beginning to dawn on their faces. But then alarms began sounding throughout the station. The High Mediator received a message on his personal communicator. His tentacles turned dark with concern. Reports from the nebula indicate fleet movements. All three sides are moving into attack positions. Estimated time to weapons range, 2 hours. Elena felt her heart sink. Understanding the problem was only the first step. Now she had to convince three proud civilizations to trust a species they barely knew. The war speaker stood up, his pheromones now carrying what Elena recognized as urgent worry. My fleet commanders have their orders. If they detect hostile action from either enemy force, they will strike first. I cannot recall them now without showing weakness. The Zephyrian speaker's form flashed rapid colors Elena had never seen before. Our crystal ships sing the war song now. To stop them would dishonor our ancestors and break sacred oaths. The collective voice delivered the worst news of all. Automated defense protocols are active. Our ships will engage any vessel that enters designated security zones. Override requires unanimous council approval, which current conflict makes impossible. Elena realized the horrible irony. Each side had set up automatic responses to protect themselves, but those same responses would guarantee a war that none of them actually wanted. There has to be a way, she said. You understand now that you have been misinterpreting each other. Surely that changes things. Understanding does not change fleet positions, the collective voice stated. Probability of armed conflict remains 73% and rising. Elena stared at the tactical display showing 3 groups of warships moving closer together. In 2 hours they would be close enough that any ship firing a weapon could hit another fleet. With tensions this high, even an accidental weapon discharge could trigger the war. She thought about human history. How many wars had been fought over misunderstandings? How many people had died because of words that were heard wrong or translated badly? But humans had also learned something else from their violent past. They had learned to build bridges between different groups, to find ways for enemies to become friends. What if we could prove to your fleet commanders that the others are not actually hostile? Elena asked. What if we could show them the real translations, the actual intentions? They would not believe it, the war speaker replied. Warriors trust what they have heard with their own sensors. Then we need to let them hear it directly, Elena said. An idea was forming in her mind. It was crazy, dangerous, and had never been attempted before, but it might be the only way. I propose a real-time translation demonstration. I will personally mediate a 3-way conversation between your fleet commanders, translating each statement correctly as it is made. The 3 delegations looked at her as if she had suggested jumping into a star. Impossible, the collective voice calculated. Simultaneous trilingual communication requires processing beyond known organic capabilities. Dangerous, the war speaker clicked. One mistranslation could trigger the very war we seek to prevent. Unprecedented, the Zephyrian speaker chimed. No being has ever attempted such a thing. Elena looked at each of them in turn. You are right. It is impossible, dangerous, and unprecedented. But your fleets are going to start shooting at each other in less than 2 hours. Do you have a better idea? The silence stretched on for long moments. Finally, the High Mediator spoke. The human proposal is noted, but such an attempt would require volunteers willing to risk not just their lives, but the fate of billions. Who would attempt such a thing? Elena straightened her shoulders and looked directly at the High Mediator. I will. Proposal accepted, confirmed Commander Collective Prime. Elena smiled as she watched the tactical display. Elena woke up in the medical bay of Harmony's Edge 3 hours later. Her head felt like someone had been using it as a drum, and her vision was still a little blurry. But she was alive, and more importantly, she could hear the sounds of celebration coming from the corridors outside. Dr. Helix, the station's chief medical officer, who looked like a cross between a tree and an octopus, rustled his leaves with relief when he saw her eyes open. Ambassador Vasquez, you gave us quite a scare. Simultaneous trilingual xenocommunication put enormous strain on your neural pathways. You should not have been able to do what you did without permanent brain damage. But I did do it, Elena said weakly, trying to sit up. And it worked? See for yourself, Dr. Helix said. activating a wall screen that showed the tactical display of the nebula terminus. Elena's heart filled with joy as she watched the three fleets working together. Corvin patrol ships were escorting Zephyrian crystal seed vessels to the planets, where they would begin growing new forests. Hegemony construction ships were building research stations with input from both other species. Instead of preparing for war, they were building the first truly joint operation in galactic history. The war speaker entered the medical bay, followed by the Zephyrian speaker and the collective voice. All three looked concerned about her condition. "Human Elena," the war speaker said, and his pheromones carried scents Elena had never detected from him before. Gratitude mixed with deep respect. "You risked your life to save people who were strangers to you. This is the highest honor a Corvin can imagine." The Zephyrian speaker's crystal form glowed with warm golden light. "Your actions created harmony where there was discord. Our songs will remember you for 1,000 generations. Statistical analysis confirms," the collective voice added, "probability of galactic war has decreased from 73% to less than 1%. Your intervention was 99.7% effective." Elena smiled, though it made her head hurt worse. "I am just glad it worked. But I could not have done it alone. You three had to trust me and trust each other. That took real courage." Dr. Helix rustled his leaves, and what Elena had learned was the equivalent of clearing his throat. "Ambassador, what you accomplished was theoretically impossible. No organic brain should be able to process 3 alien communication systems simultaneously. How did you do it?" Elena thought about how to explain it. "Humans evolved as social animals. We lived in groups where we had to understand many different types of people, young and old, male and female, leaders and followers, friends and enemies. Our brains learned to be flexible, to adapt to different ways of thinking and communicating." She gestured weakly toward the 3 alien representatives. "Your species each developed perfect solutions to communication. Zephyrians use harmony and emotion. Corvins use hierarchy and chemical signals. The hegemony uses logic and data, but humans never specialized. We kept all the old ways of understanding each other." The collective voice processed this information. Hypothesis: human cognitive flexibility represents evolutionary advantage in multi-species environments. Recommendation: humans should serve as galactic communication facilitators. "That is actually what I wanted to talk to you about," Elena said, trying to sit up straighter. "What happened here cannot happen again. We need to fix the translation systems across the galaxy, so that other species do not almost go to war over misunderstood words." The 3 representatives exchanged glances. The war speaker spoke first. "What do you propose, honored human?" Elena had been thinking about this while she recovered. "We need new translation protocols, not just converting words from one language to another, but actually understanding the communication methods of each species. Every translation should include emotional context, social signals, and logical structure." She activated her datapad, which Dr. Helix had placed beside her bed. "I propose the Harmony Protocols, a new galactic standard for interspecies communication. Every message would be transmitted in the sender's original format, then translated to match the receiver's communication style, while preserving the original meaning." The Zephyrian speaker's harmonics became excited. "So when we sing of joy, it would be translated to Corvin honor sense and hegemony efficiency data?" "Exactly," Elena confirmed. "And when Corvins speak of pack loyalty, it would become Zephyrian harmony songs and hegemony logical commitment. Implementation would require significant system upgrades across all galactic communication networks," the collective voice calculated. "But potential for preventing future conflicts makes cost analysis favorable." The war speaker's mandibles clicked approvingly. "To prevent honorable beings from fighting over lies and misunderstandings. Yes, this is worthy work." Over the next several hours, as Elena recovered, the 3 species worked together to draft the new communication protocols. It was the first time in galactic history that such different civilizations had collaborated on a project this complex. Elena found herself serving as more than just a translator. She became a bridge between different ways of thinking. When the Zephyrians suggested something that sounded too emotional to the hegemony, Elena would explain the logical benefits. When the Corvins proposed something that seemed too aggressive to the Zephyrians, Elena would show them the protective harmony in it. When the hegemony offered solutions that felt too cold to the others, Elena would reveal the caring logic behind them. You know, Elena said as they worked, this cooperation in the nebula is just the beginning. Imagine what your three species could accomplish together across the galaxy. Zephyrian beauty, Corvan strength, and hegemony efficiency working as one. The possibility seemed to excite all three groups. They began planning not just joint operations in the nebula terminus, but expansion of cooperation to other regions, trade agreements, research partnerships, cultural exchanges, ideas that would have been impossible just hours ago when they thought they were enemies. Dr. Helix monitored Elena's brain activity throughout these discussions and noticed something remarkable. Ambassador, your neural pathways are adapting. The more you translate between these three species, the easier it becomes for you. It is as if your brain is learning to think in multiple languages simultaneously. Elena felt it too. The splitting headache was fading, and she found herself understanding nuances in alien communication that she had never noticed before. She was becoming something new, not just human, but a bridge between humans and other species. But she was also becoming tired in a way that went deeper than physical exhaustion. Creating understanding between such different minds was rewarding, but it was also draining in ways she had never experienced. The protocols are nearly complete, the collective voice announced, but implementation will require trained operators who can manage multi-species communication. Statistical analysis suggests very few beings possess necessary cognitive flexibility. Elena knew what they were suggesting. You want humans to become the galaxy's translators and mediators. Not just any humans, the Zephyrian speaker sang softly. Humans like you who can hear the harmony in all voices. The war speaker's scent carried respectful request. Would your species consider such a role? To stand between others and prevent the wars that misunderstanding creates? Elena thought about Earth, about her own people who were still learning their place in the galactic community. This could be humanity's contribution to the galaxy, not the strongest weapons or the fastest ships, but the ability to help others understand each other. I will need to discuss this with my government, she said, but I think many humans would be honored to serve as bridges between species. Then let us make this proposal to the full Galactic Council, the collective voice suggested. The Harmony Protocols and the Human Mediation Corps. Elena smiled, feeling strength returning to her body. Let us do that. But first I want to see the nebula for myself. I want to see what peace looks like when it is built by cooperation instead of conquest. The three representatives agreed immediately. They would travel together to the nebula terminus to witness the joint operations they had created. Elena would see Zephyrian, crystal forests growing under Corvan protection, while hegemony, scientists studied the process and improved. She would see what the galaxy could become when different species worked together instead of fighting over misunderstandings as they prepared to leave Harmony's edge. Elena realized that her role as a diplomat had fundamentally changed. She was no longer just representing humanity to other species. She had become something new, a voice that could speak for understanding itself. The galaxy was about to discover what humans could really offer, not just another species among many, but the species that could help all others find harmony. The massive space station called Harmony's Edge floated in the empty space between three star systems. It was built to be neutral ground, a place where different alien species could meet safely. But today nothing felt safe. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stepped off her transport ship and looked around the docking bay. She had never seen so many warships gathered in one place. Through the thick windows she could see the pointed crystal ships of the Zephyrians glowing with angry red light. The dark metal battleships of the Corvan Empire hung like storm clouds, their weapons clearly visible. And the smooth white vessels of the hegemony of worlds moved in perfect formation, cold and precise. Elena was human. Her species had only joined the Galactic Council 5 years ago. Most aliens still thought of humans as newcomers who knew nothing about galactic politics. Today, she wished they were right. The emergency session was being held in the Grand Assembly Hall. Elena had been there before, but never when it felt like a bomb about to explode. Representatives from dozens of species filled the curved rows of seats. But everyone was watching the three groups at the center. The Zephyrians looked like living crystals shaped roughly like people. Their bodies were made of a clear blue material that rang like bells when they moved. Right now their leader's crystal form was flashing red and orange, which Elena knew meant anger and fear. The Zephyrian speaker's voice came out as musical notes that the translation system turned into words. The nebula terminus has belonged to our people for 1,000 cycles, the speaker sang. Our ancestors planted the first crystal gardens in that space. Our songs have blessed those stars since before your species learned to fly. Across from them sat the Corvan delegation. They looked like giant insects crossed with armored warriors. Their hard shells were scarred from battles, and their leader, called the war speaker, had metal plates covering half his face. When he talked, Elena could smell the sharp scent he released into the air. All Corvans did this. They communicated with both words and smells that showed their emotions and status. Ancient claims mean nothing. The war speaker clicked and hissed. My fleets took the nebula fair and square. 3 months ago, we drove out the pirates who were hiding there. It belongs to those strong enough to hold it. That is Corvan law. The third group was harder to read. The hegemony of worlds sent beings that were half robot, half organic. Their collective voice was a person whose brain was connected to thousands of computers. When they spoke, their words came out perfectly logical and emotionless. Both claims are invalid, the collective voice stated. Our terraforming ships have been working in the nebula terminus for 2 years. We have already invested 47 billion credits in making the planet suitable for life. Our legal analysis shows clear ownership rights based on improvement of the territory. Elena listened to each group and felt confused. She had read all the reports about the nebula crisis during her trip to the station. Each species was demanding the same thing: control of a region of space called the nebula terminus. It was rich in rare gases that powered starships and had several planets that could be made suitable for living. But as she listened to them argue, something bothered her. Each group was saying the others were being unreasonable and threatening war. Yet when Elena read their actual position papers, they seemed to want similar things. The Zephyrians wanted to grow their crystal forests on the planets. The Corvans wanted to mine the gas clouds and protect the space from pirates. The hegemony wanted to build cities and research stations. Why couldn't they just work together? The argument was getting worse. The Zephyrian speaker's crystal body was now flashing bright red, and the musical notes coming from them were sharp and angry. Your fleets gather at our borders like predators. You speak of strength but show only cruelty. The war speaker's scent became stronger, and Elena's translation device told her it meant territorial anger. You sing pretty songs, but your ships run when faced with real power. Weakness deserves no respect. The collective voice's mechanical parts whirred faster. Both responses demonstrate emotional instability incompatible with rational resource management. Our analysis indicates 73% probability of armed conflict within 6 hours. Elena sat up straight. 6 hours? She looked at the datapad showing fleet positions. The collective voice was right. All 3 sides had moved their warships closer to the nebula. They were claiming it was for defense, but everyone was ready to attack. The Corvan Empire has given the Crystal Singers and the Machine Mines 4 hours to remove their ships from our territory, the war speaker announced. After that, we will consider any vessels in the nebula to be invaders. Our harmonies will not be silenced by threats, the Zephyrian speaker chimed back. We will defend our sacred spaces with all our strength. Defensive protocols are now active, the collective voice added. We will protect our investments with appropriate force. The hall erupted in worried chatter from the other species. Elena heard the word war in a dozen different languages. She had studied galactic history. The last major war had destroyed entire star systems and killed billions of beings. But something still bothered her about the translations. Elena spoke 5 human languages and had learned to notice when translations were wrong. During her years as a diplomat, she had seen how small errors in translation could cause big problems. She activated her personal translator and set it to monitor all 3 languages at once. Most beings could only focus on one language, but humans were different. Their brains could handle multiple communication streams if they concentrated. What she heard made her stomach drop. When the Zephyrian speaker said, "We seek harmony in shared spaces," the Corvan translator turned it into, "We demand submission to our will." When the war speaker said, "We offer protection to worthy allies," the Zephyrian translator made it, "We threaten destruction to all others." When the collective voice said, "We propose efficient resource sharing," both other translators changed it to, "We demand technological control." The three species were not hearing each other at all. Their translation systems were changing peaceful words into hostile ones. Elena felt her heart racing. She understood what was happening, but no one would believe her. Humans were too new, too unimportant, and time was running out. The session leader, an ancient being called the High Mediator, raised a tentacle for silence. Unless agreement is reached within 3 hours, this council cannot prevent what comes next. We call for final proposals, 3 hours. Elena looked at her datapad again. The fleets were getting closer. In 3 hours, they would be in firing range of each other. Once that happened, even a small mistake could start a war that would spread across the galaxy. She had to find a way to make them understand. 3 entire civilizations were about to destroy each other over words they were not really saying. Elena took a deep breath and stood up. As the representative of one of the newest species in the council, she had the right to speak. But would anyone listen? "Honored beings," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. "I request permission to address this crisis." The High Mediator's large eyes focused on her. "The human delegation may speak, though time grows short." Elena felt hundreds of alien eyes watching her. 3 fleets hung in space, ready for war, and she was about to suggest something that had never been tried before. The galaxy's fate now rested in the hands of one human who had noticed what no one else could see.